The primary and most efficient method of billing with ChiroPractice Pro is through our partner clearinghouse Optum. To electronically bill insurance through ChiroPractice Pro, an Optum account is necessary. But there are also other ways of billing if you do not wish to use Optum. A clearinghouse is a gateway to the insurance company community. Optum maintains a relationship with the insurance companies to make sure all the data moving back and forth is correct and accurate. Anytime insurance is submitted to an insurance company, it must first go through a clearinghouse. Even billing companies must use the clearinghouse system. To electronically bill insurance in the system, you are required to have 5 items. Number 1, an Optum username and password. 2, a provider. 3, an insurance company. 4, a billable charge. And 5, a diagnosis code. The Optum username and password is provided from Optum when you sign up with them. We'll connect you with a representative from Optum. At ChiroPractice Pro, we do not control Optum's prices or services. Our goal is to implement all of the service Optum provides into ChiroPractice Pro. Input your username and password on the Billing tab of the setup under Clinic Information. Providers are set up under Providers in the Billing tabs. The table here shows all providers and the default provider for each category. If you have multiple providers, it is okay if they do not fall under a default category. You can assign them to a specific patient and charge later. Let's go left to right and define each of the default providers. First is the submitter. This can be a person or non-person and should be the person or entity who is submitting the claim. Next is the submitter contact. If the submitter is a non-person, you'll need to include submitter contact information. If the submitter is a person, you can choose a contact as the same as the submitter. Next is Pay To. This should only be used if you have a PO box that is used for receiving payments. The billing provider is the next selection. For small single provider practices, the billing provider is usually the default provider for all categories. If you have a large practice with a group NPI and multiple rendering providers, the billing provider is the group. It does not have to be a person, but it can be. Next is the billing provider contact. Similar to the submitter, if billing provider is a non-person, you can provide contact information of a person in the provider contact item. The service facility is the location where you perform the care. If you have a facility location that is different than the billing provider, it must be a non-person. However, if the billing provider and the service facility are the same location, then this can be a person. Similarly, if you have a facility that is different from the billing provider, you can assign a default here. If the facility is different than the billing provider, you can designate a separate contact person here under the facility contact. The rendering provider is the person performing the care to the patient. This must be a person, but can also be the same as the billing provider. Finally, the referring provider is a person that refers the patient for care. This is not often defaulted to a value and can be individually assigned on a claim. The selection would be more important for a physical therapist or occupational therapist. To access the details of the provider, click the I or the information icon. Fill out as much information as you can or need. For instance, a submitter or facility do not need to have an MPI, tax ID, or taxonomy code, but a billing provider does. Some insurance companies require taxonomy codes and others do not. Credentials are not necessary. It is used for display purposes only. All zip codes must be the full 5+4 zip code. Other info can be used for whatever information that you need to store regarding the provider. it is not necessarily for billing. To create a new provider, click the Add New button at the bottom of the table, and to delete a provider, click the red X icon at the end of the row. If you change anything, make sure you click the Save button at the bottom. That covers setting up providers. Let's move on to Insurance Company, which is the next section. Only 2 items are required for setting up the insurance company for electronic billing: the insurance company name and the payer ID. The payer ID can be found by clicking the link to the Optum payer list. Similar to the providers, to create a new insurance company in the system, click the Add New button at the bottom of the table. You can see and edit the insurance company information by clicking the information icon, I, on the right of the row and delete it by clicking the red X icon. The address is not used for electronic claims, but may be required for paper claims. Enter an address if you do not have an Optum payer ID for the insurer. The telephone number and fax number are here for information only and are not used for billing. A billable charge is next. To view your charge, click the Next tab in the Billing Setup section, Charges. All the charges in the system are shown in the list on the left and sorted by categories and CPT codes. To edit a charge, simply click the charge in the list. To create or delete a charge, click the corresponding buttons to the right of the list. Billable charges require 4 things: a charge code, the CPT code, a description, a charge amount, and the billable checkbox checked. Only charges with the billable checkmark checked will be pushed to a claim. If you use billing modifiers and want a default modifier for a charge, you can input one here. You can always assign modifiers when charging the patient as well. Finally, we need to have a diagnosis code. Diagnosis codes are found on the next tab, Diagnosis. Similar to the charges, the list of diagnosis is on the left, sorted by category. All that is technically required for the diagnosis code is the code itself, but a description will help keep track of code names. The code can be ICD-9, ICD-10, or any other method required by the insurance company. If you have a list of commonly used codes, or you would like us to input a list of commonly used codes, send us a help request. This video covered the setup for billing insurance companies. The next video will cover charging the patient and submitting a claim. Thank you for joining us for another training module with ChiroPracticePro.com.